Where's Sino sitting at the back, isn't he? Hello, hello, hello. Lovely to be with you all again. Um, okay, can you share with me what you learned, a little bit of what you learned on Monday? What were we talking about on Monday and what one now sutim het lo you? What were we talking about on Monday? Anyone?
We learned something about how to use Excel.
How to use Excel? Yeah, that was, of course, always the big thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Did any of you practice using it since then, or maybe
Yes.
last week? Yeah, fantastic. Good. It's the most incredibly useful program for handling data. In fact, many people use it more than word processors. Good, good. What about the other things? We were talking about the. Yeah. Good evening. Good evening. Many people. We were talking about the.
Yeah, we were discussing about the gross margin and the variable costs and fixed costs.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah, those are some of the things we discussed.
Okay, very good. That, of course, applies to every business, but in farming, we are particularly interested to look at the variable costs, just what we call the direct costs of growing or raising a crop or a livestock, and then we can compare the income with those direct costs and see how much gross margin we get out of the system. That's good, and that's what we'll be looking at some more later on this evening. We also looked at the other factors. Let me just bring it up. Okay, so you should now be seeing that. We're also looking at the other factors as well as gross margin, which is probably one of the most important, because if we're working financially, if we are handling money, if we're needing to make money, if we're needing to cover our costs, that's going to be the key, one of the key issues, one of the key ways to decide, to plan what we grow or raise. So that's really important. And also we were looking at returns to labor. How much are they going to make per hour or per day that they're actually working on it? So that's also very important. And you remember we were looking at that table of the different crops with their returns to labor. But it was interesting to talk about that with, for instance, and his rice growing, because if you look at the figures, they don't make very much in terms of results per working day. But there are other reasons to choose rice. There are other reasons to grow rice apart from just making a lot of money. Because they particularly like, and I particularly like the idea that you can store rice in a house or whatever, and it can be used at any time. For even stored rice, if it's properly dried, will keep for a long time. So that's a big advantage over the customary kai kai. And another reason we were looking at the availability of resources, obviously, land, labor, capital, management skill, and importantly, support services. So many commercial farmers, especially when they're starting out, need access to some good support services. And obviously this is going to be difficult. The further away you are, the more difficult it is to get some support, especially if things go wrong. If you have a disease or a pest on your farm, it's going to be difficult to get Didi men to come out and see your farm. You may have to just take a sample of the disease or pest and bring it into the main center. But you still need those support services some way or another. You need access to markets. You need access to input supplies of seed, fertilizer, and chemicals. If you're going to farm like that with what we call high input agriculture, if you're going to spend quite a bit of money on producing a good crop, then you need to be able to access those supplies, those inputs. You need farm set in Mount Hagen, or you need a store in Goroka to be able to supply all those supplies for you. You need to analyze carefully the risk of something going wrong. Manage the risk. Is it going to be too risky? Is there going to be something else so you can be less risky, or where you can reduce the risk? And we're looking at climate and soils feasibility, and of course the social, cultural, and economic context. All of these will have a factor in determining what you grow, what you raise, how much what size of enterprise. Is it going to be 50 chickens, 100 chickens, 1,000 chickens, 10,000 chickens? All of these things are going to be determined by one or more of these factors, and some will be more important than others. So that's really your sort of handbook, your checklist on what to grow, what to raise, how much of it, when, where, as part of your planning, or maybe more likely the farmers or people in your community who are embarking on this sort of enterprise. Are you guys happy with that? Would you like to, is there anything you'd like me to cover a little bit more carefully there? Because today we'll be looking at gross margin much more carefully at about 7:45 or so, when we've had our break. So before then, I want to do two things. I want to just talk a little bit about another economic principle, where we started, if you can remember, especially those of you who are in the class the first time, the first economic principle we looked at, and then we're going to look at another one today. Each week we're going to look at one economic principles, or law belong or something. Laws about things and about how they work together. So I will go into a new share now. So as you can remember, we were starting to look at economic principles which underlie all the farm management. So you can become not economist, but you can become o save mere o save man, where clearly work money really. So as you can remember, the first one we looked at was about supply and demand. These two things combine to give us a price that's being offered and a quantity that's being sold. If people agree that the price of cow is going to be 1 kina per kilo, then everyone has to really offer one price, 1 kina per kilo. If you grow cocoa or coconuts for export, then you have to accept the world price. PNG is a small producer of most things, so it has to accept the world price. If the crop fails in a big supplying country, as it did in the case of vanilla, I don't know if you remember in the early 2000s, there was a complete crop failure in Madagascar, which is where they grow the vanilla, and the price went up many times to, I think, about 200 kina per kilogram. But if there's an oversupply, the price will drop. And often prices go up and down and up and down and up and down, because if there's a good price, then obviously a lot of farmers will start planting or start harvesting where they didn't before. So that pushes the price down. And then when the price goes down, then the same farmers will give up and not harvest anymore. So it often ends up in a big circle or cycle. So as I said, the price quantities relationship, this is all the people who want it, all the people who are buying a particular crop. Now that could be people in the market, or it could be people in big stores or overseas. It really works the same. Whoever is buying it, the lower the price, the more they will buy. So when the price is very high, then naturally fewer people will want to buy the crop or the product. When the price is low, all the way down here, then there will be a lot more people who want to buy it. So broadly speaking, what we call the demand curve, it's not usually a straight line, because for various reasons, people are not going to continue to buy it even if the price goes down a long way. There's a certain level where everyone is satisfied. If the price of whatever cow was to drop from kina to 50 cents per kilo, then they probably wouldn't buy twice as much, because barely pull up and they all have bought their cow already. So we can say that this is not a straight line, but it's a curve. And it indicates that at this end, at the top end, no matter how much the price goes down, the quantity is not going to the quantity bought is not going to increase. So then we have the other side of it, the supply curve, which is what the farmers, the producers, are willing to sell. So you've got these two sides of the relationships, almost like two halves of a pair of scissors, if you want to say, and that will show us the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. So this works wherever there is freedom of purchase and sale. Of course, if there's price controls, If there's quantity controls like rationing, then senis. Inoga dizala dupla sai bung one time easy on sem. But if there's freedom of markets, if there's free movement of prices up and down, then this is how it works. Everywhere, in every country, in every situation where there's what we call a market economy. Now, some places, maybe like North Korea, maybe like Cuba, there's much more government control over prices. And that changes the story. But for us, for PNG, for Australia, for wherever, that run their economies by the market, what we call the market, which is the relationship between supply and demand. It's not just the fresh produce market in Mount Hagen, it's the whole market for fruit and veg, the whole market for cacao, the whole market for cassava, the whole market for coconuts or copra. So some markets will be local, some markets will be national, some markets will be global. So you can talk about the world market for cocoa, because people in every country want to eat chocolate, so eventually there is a world demand and a world market for cocoa, with people from all sorts of places producing and people all sorts of places buying up cocoa to make into chocolate. So that was the first principle that we saw the other day, 2 weeks ago now. And maybe the demand goes downwards and maybe the price will go down, in which case there will be a new equilibrium. You have the same quantity, but the price will be lower. Instead of there, it will be there and there. So you can see that if people start wanting less of that, if it becomes less fashionable, less usable, then their demand, their taste for it, their interest in buying that thing will fall away. And people's tastes change. They used to buy more cotton clothing, for instance, and now with the competition from synthetic clothing, there's less demand for cotton clothing. So the price of cotton goes down. They used to get only coconut oil, and now they have much more palm oil. So trends and demand can change, and supply too can change. So that's not fixed forever, those relationships. Markets are always changing, and that's reflected in the changes in price. Maybe sometimes with the supply going down so far like that, there's a drought, and the suppliers won't be able to supply as much because they don't have as much. So then that becomes something that you have to adjust in terms of price. So the way the market works, it's always an invisible adjustment of the price. It's really amazing how it works. So clever. So that was the first principle and the most important law, really, that we were looking at last week. Now, the second thing that we want to talk about today is that we have to count the labor that, that the family puts in, because it has a cost value. So we think that, miwok is like free input to my crop. But in fact, labor has a value. Labor has a cost value, which we have to count. So we think of the opportunity cost. That's what we call it. The value of that labor is the value of other things that we are not doing. In this case, because we are working on the farm. So let's say I'm working where I could be sitting by the beach telling stories. How much do I value my time sitting by the beach telling stories? If it's more valuable to me than working, than the money I can get working, then I'm not going to work. So you see, work has a cost, because when you're working, there's other things you're not doing, like maybe in a monetary sense, working for in a job, or working for someone else, or maybe going to school or college or university. So the value, the cost of doing that job is the cost of not doing something else. And it depends on how much you value that other thing or activity or work that you're not doing. And that is the cost of your labor. In the same way, if you eat your cacao or other food crops, that has a cost value. So that you can say that has a value. So you can add it to your income stream. If you're working as a farm manager, working up a gross margin budget, and you eat a lot of your crop, you eat a lot of the corn instead of selling it, maybe, that also has a value. Does anyone have questions or comments about that? It's probably a new idea for you. All these ideas will be a bit new. So, when we do our gross margin, we include family labor at a price, because that has a cost. Even though we're not paying directly in kinas, it still has a cost. It's still a resource that we are using to produce the crop. So it's important when you're thinking about commercial farming or managing a farm, it's important to scalim the labor. You can think about it, say, if one of your workers has a university degree and they are actually just working on the farm, that's a big cost, because it's the cost of not having a professional job, isn't it? So that represents a major cost to that person or to that family. Of course, if they're just working in the holidays, that's okay, because there won't be so much cost and they can still carry on with their degree or with their job. Hem clear lo yupla. Makes you think, huh? So have a look at the notes again. The notes have more material than the presentation. So the notes are quite extensive and should give you a good, simple explanation of most of these principles. But I think it's important, it's very important to have an understanding of some of the economic principles behind what we do as managers or as facilitators. So we'll leave that one for next week. In any case, we've started to talk about variable and fixed costs, so that is another one that we've covered really already. Let's just have a quick look. Yeah. So we'll keep that till next week, maybe Monday, so that you get a good start, because this week the essay is due on Saturday or Sunday. If you need more time for your essay, I'm delighted to see you all here in the class. If you need more time for the essay, please send me an extension or a request for an extension, okay? If I don't hear from you, I'm assuming that everything will come in on Saturday. Otherwise, marks will start getting taken off. But if you request an extension, Salim toksave kam or Salim askim ikam lomi, and then I can consider it and probably I will say it's okay. All right? Okay, thank you very much. Now I'd like you to, I can see an extra computer today, I think, so I'd like you to make sure that you're sitting at a table with a computer, and we'll carry on learning about Excel. So please rearrange yourselves as you need. So what have we got there? We've got Rachel and Sino. Who's at the back? Joel, is it? Or Stuart? Yeah, move up, thank you. Wonderful. Okay, well, we're carrying on learning Excel, but we've learned actually the important parts of it we have learned already. We'll this week and next we'll do some more learning, and then that will be all. Okay, so shall we go back to our Okay, so we've got a spreadsheet which made us work out all these things, the sums you can remember, and this was the average. So we can't just leave it in that sort of figure. You can remember that up here, as you can see here, it says average of all those cells from number 2 to number 10. So bring up your spreadsheets, the ones we were working on, and we'll carry on making it not only more powerful, but to look better. Now, let's suppose that we had more people in this list, and we still wanted to make it big like this. Let's suppose we added a few more people. Let's take that to one side for the moment, and this to one side at the moment. So you see, you can drag and drop your cells, and if you can see up there, that total that we had from this column here, column D, is still the right total. Even though we've moved it away from that column, the right figure is still showing, because as you can see up the top there, it's still the sum of those cells. Doesn't matter where the square is, it'll still show the right figure. So that's great. So what we would need to do is to say something like average hours worked. Now that's a bit big, isn't it? So we'll make it smaller in the usual way. Turn off bold italic. And you could just bring it across here, just like that. And then total pay. Remember that if you're working in the cell like that, you double click on it and you can change the words. But once you click away from the cell, like that, you have to use the factors up the top. You can change the fill of the cells, or you can change the fill of a whole bunch of cells just by using that fill button on the top there. So you can choose any color you want. You can even change the color of the text. Choose that whole lot again, and you can make it white if you want, like that. That's just longbilas, really. It doesn't change any of the calculations, but you can make it easier to understand by changing the fill or changing the text colors. So, total paid, we've got it here over here in F9. Let's drag it. You can see the plus button changes to those 4 arrows when you get to the edge of the cell. So when it changes to the 4 arrows, you can click and drag it wherever you want. There. So there you have your complete story. And if you wanted to see it more clearly, you can zoom out, of course, just like Microsoft Word. Use that little slide right in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen of the window and zoom out. You can make it really, really, really small if you want. But of course, we want to see it more clearly, so we're making it really big, like this. But there's a problem, because if you zoom in far enough, you start losing all the stuff at the bottom, don't you? And you don't want to have to pull the screen up and down every time. So there's a good system that you can use, which is called freezing the panes. And this is how it works. You choose that row if you want to choose that row, or if you want to choose the headings and the names on the left on column A. You click the first cell that should be that will disappear, and you go to View. Can you see up the top there? You've got a menu item called View. So if you click on View, View. That's better. And you click on that button, which is called Freeze Panes. It says freeze a portion of the sheet to keep it visible while you scroll through the rest of the sheet. This is useful for checking out data in other parts of your worksheet without losing your headers or labels. So if we click on that, we have this option. Either we freeze both rows and columns, or we freeze the top row, or we freeze the first column. So let's try freezing the top row just for now. Click on that. And you will see that now we can scroll up and down without losing the first row there. Can you look in? So we're now able to go up and down and still see the headings in row 1, which, I mean, at the moment we've managed to fit everything onto the one screen. But if we had other people, okay, let's move all that down again. Say there to row 2021. Let's add some other names in there. Okay, I didn't pick them for any students. Name nothing, yeah? But you can see that now, because we've frozen the top row there, we can see the rest of the screen and we don't lose the headings at the top there. So that's really helpful. That's called freeze the panes. And then, of course, you can unfreeze them again very easily. Click again on the freeze the pane, and then you can unlock everything. And then, as you'll see when we go down, the heading row disappears. So we've unlocked it. You can also, if you really want, you can lock both the row and the column so that they both end up frozen. And to do that, you have to click the first cell outside those rows and columns. So in that case, it's always, in this case, if you've got just row 1 and column A, it'll always be B2. Now, it depends on your rows and columns, but it's the first, you have to click on the first square, which will be scrolling. So if we do that, and we freeze the panes. We click on that, then that will go up and down. But if we put all the data in for August, September, October, and so on, and we went that way, you see, you'll still see Api, David, Roanna, Kip, and Sino. You still see all the names on the left, even though the data is finished. So if you have spreadsheets which spread with a lot of data spreading, maybe for several years or many months or many weeks, and you need to see their names here on the left, and you need to see the headings, well, then that's what you do. You click on the first cell, which will be moving up and down like that. In this case, it's B2. It depends on what your heading row is or your column. Okay. So in case I've gone too fast, just work on it, all of you, in your groups, and just try doing things like giving headings for your setting up your nice headings there. So as I showed you, you can put any of that anywhere. Anyone have problems or questions or something more that they want to do with their spreadsheet? Doc sabe kam. Suppose if you're stuck.
Sorry, how could we take off the border lines in between the spaces?
Okay, good question. You can turn on borders and you can turn them off. Okay, if you wanted to put a border around there, you go back to your home ribbon there and you click on, there's lots of choices of what borders to put in. So for instance, if you had all borders, then that would put all the borders around around all the cells, which you may not want. So you might want to put outside border only, like that, and that will show you only, oopsie, what have I done? Let me go back. Maybe just outside borders. There. So there you will have a border outside that particular square. And you can make it smaller or bigger. You can change the style of the line. You can do all sorts of things. Line style. You can make it bigger. You can make it thicker. Thick outside borders there, so that becomes thicker there, and so on. But I know what you're saying. You want to get rid of all those faint lines. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You can do that too. If you view and you take out, can you see that little thing that says grid lines up the top? Grid lines. Grid lines here. Yeah, you look in. Okay. If you click on that and get rid of the grid lines, you won't see anything there like that. Everything still works the same, but you just don't see the little lines. That's what you wanted to know, huh? Okay, brilliant. But for most of the work, it's better, I think, to turn them on again. Now, the other thing is, if you're wanting to print it, you will find out if you start asking oh, this is interesting. I'll just show you something here. Can you see it's just gone hash 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 there? That is because there's not enough space to show the value. The value is still there, because if you go onto that square there, you'll still see it. It's still there. You can still see the number there is 1704. But there's just not enough space. So what you have to do there is two things. Either you make that smaller size there, smaller size, or if you want to keep it the same size, you have to make your column a bit wider. And you remember we were able to change the width of the column or the height of the row by clicking and dragging along on the edge of the column. So if you do that, then it comes back up to the full visible value. Am clear? So we can click and drag to change any width of the columns, or we can do them all together, or the whole spreadsheet at once. We can set, if you really want, we can set the size of the columns and rows. So that's again, it's something that we can do in the view ribbon. Let me just remember how to do that. Page layout. Oh yeah. So you can set a width there on page layout. You can set width of columns. Well, you don't want to make it one page. No, we don't want to do that. One page. No, that doesn't work. I'll check how to set the whole lot together. But for sure, you can drag your rows to make them bigger. You can drag your columns to make them bigger or smaller. And so on. The last thing I want to talk to you about today is in Excel is the absolute value, and that's a little bit more complicated, so we will come back to it next week. Let's say you've got your hours and your pay rates. Of course, you can change that at all. If Kip has got a raise, or if he's a foreman or something like that, and you end up paying him 8 kina instead of 6, you put 8 in there, and that becomes 8 kina. Can you see all the figures change? It was 1704 at the bottom, the total paid. Now it's 1740. He was being paid 92 or whatever it was, 108, and it's gone up to 144. So as you can see, just change the data you put in, and automatically everything changes with it, as long as you have the right relationships, as long as you have the right formulas that you've built in to each of those things. So because it's B5 and C5 up here in the formula bar, and it's not just numbers, then you can be sure that if we change any of the B5 or C5, then the D5, which is this one, is going to change too. But let's say we need to change everything to look at let's say, a tax rate or something like that, that we need to take off. We need to take off tax. So we need to work out what everyone is paid, and let's say everyone gets paid at a constant rate, which is the same for everyone. Let's say it's 7%. Let's just say for the sake of it, 7%. So we'll put in a new row here, a new column here, insert that column, right click, and you can insert it there like that, and then we'll call that tax paid. Now, because the tax paid will be the same rate, you want to be able to multiply all of these figures by the same number. So we'll put down here a tax rate 0.07. So that's like 7%. That's the same as saying equals 7%. Because it thinks it's a 7 toya, but it isn't. It's actually a rate. It's a figure which is 0.07. Or maybe we don't want it there. Maybe we'll put it somewhere else for now. No, it still sits at okay. Okay, but in fact it's not 7 toya, it's 7%. So we want to work out the tax rate that's actually paid for these people. So if we put a formula which is equals D2 times, where are you, Mr. Tax Rate? There, 15, D15, it will show us the tax that API has to pay. And let's try filling that, dragging it down, and see if the others work the same way. Oh no, there's a problem. It doesn't automatically fill. Because why? Because it thinks that it's just using D15 down here, and because we're moving down a row, it thinks D16. I've got to multiply David's salary not by the D15, but by D16, which is down here. And there's nothing in D16. So it's not going to give us the right result. Because why? Because when we put that in, we are using what we call relative cell values. So what Excel says is, I need to multiply the two cells, the cell to the left, by the tax rate, which is down here, D15. And the next one, I need to multiply the cell to the left by the cell one down from this one. But of course you don't want to do that. You want everyone to be multiplied by the same tax rate. So what do? What you have to do is you have to put a dollar signs on each of the column and row references if you want them. So we want D15 here, because that's the cell with the tax rate in it. But instead of just putting it like D15, because then of course the mistake will keep on happening all the way down. You don't want to have to replace every cell and say D15, D15. You make it what we call an absolute factor, which by which you put a dollar sign in front of the column and the row. And then it will give you the right result, not only for that row, but for all the other rows now, because we've got the right reference, cell reference there. So there we are. We've got the tax paid for each person easily with a dragging down with that little black cross there. So that's the way we use absolute cell references when we're wanting to, you see it's 0.07, so we've actually multiplied all of your pay salaries by 7% to work out how much tax you have to pay, how much tax we have to take off. So then, of course, if we want the net pay, then that's easy. You just take that away, column E from column D. So here we are. That's going to be equals again. That particular cell, F2, equals D2. It doesn't have to be a capital, as long as it's the right letter. D2 minus E2. Right? And that's his net pay. So it works nicely, and in each case it's going to be D3 minus E3, D4 minus E4, and so on and so on. But we can, as you know, we can use our little black cross there, our fill handle, to go down and get everyone's net pay rate there. There we are. That's how much istablo pocket blow you plus suppose you blow, and we all know where we are. Ooh, bloody something, but you're doing so well. If you can reproduce that learning worksheet as you go, very good, with the different colors, fonts, and especially the different formulae, that you have to be sure that the formulas are right. If the formulas are wrong, the results will be wrong. Has anyone got a question about anything? How to do things on Excel? Api? Can't hear. Mino Arem.
Can you do the formula for the tax paid again, please?
Sure.
All right.
As you can remember, we got the salary, in this case in D2, by multiplying the hours and the pay rate. So we get your gross salary. Now for the tax, we're wanting to multiply everyone's salary by the same tax rate, correct?
Yes.
So we've put down here, you can put it anywhere, a cell with the tax rate in it, 0.07. So we want to multiply everyone by 0.07 to find out the tax. So we know that we want to multiply 150 by that 0.07, so it's D2 times D15, which is the cell reference for the tax rate. Okay? Are you with me,
Yes.
Api?
Yes.
Okay. But if we just copy that formula, nothing, it's gonna give us lots of zeros, because Excel thinks that because we're moving one column down for the next person, for David, we need to move down to D16, but there's nothing in D16, which means that we can't just use a relative value, we have to use an absolute value. And that's where we want D15 to be stuck in stone for all the calculations, you see? And the way we do that is we add the dollar sign to the references up there. You look in Antapya in the formula bar there. Can you see the dollar signs
Yes.
there? Yeah, okay, good. So what that is saying is I need it to be multiplied by D15, whatever the row is. Wherever we are, we want the same cell reference to be used to work out our tax. And that's why we put the dollar signs in front of the D and dollar sign in front of the 15. And then that will set the tax rate well enough for everyone so it uses that same figure, that same cell, to multiply all of your salaries to get the tax.
Thank you.
Okay? Well done. Thank you, RP. Anyone else? We're really getting to be smart with this Excel. Are you okay, David?
I lost track of the explanation, so I'm just lost.
Which one are you lost about? The absolute value?
From the beginning.
Is anyone else lost? Oh, you're all okay. I think
Can we get some help from you? Like, can you help us to write them or something like that for us so that we can have copies and we can just read them and then just follow as we use the computer?
oh, you mean write text
Yeah.
that gives you
Starting
the
from-
notes
Yeah.
that you can follow.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
I can.
follow. Yeah.
Yeah, I can find those things. All right. But obviously, I do need to demonstrate them as well. But if you'd like some text notes about the beginnings of Excel and so on, I can find or produce those too. But what I will also do is I will upload this worksheet to Cluster. And then you can download the worksheet and play around with it and change figures and see what the relationship is between the different cells. So I'll do two things. Both download the worksheet, which you can use and play with, and I will also put in some notes. Is that good?
Sorry, most of us we are confused about how to arrange the Excel. So actually, most of us we lost in the way. So we need just kindly ask if you could help us to a bit, just give a quick brief to start up a new Excel again, please.
What do you need?
Most of us we lost it in the way, so we just ask if you could help us to from the beginning
Okay,
till
I will,
today.
for sure. I will leave it for now.
Yes.
I will leave it for now. But for next time, I will revise.
Yes.
and provide the examples, this one, and some notes. Okay?
Yes.
I don't expect everyone to get it all first time, but
Yeah.
there is a logic. There is a logic to it which you can probably see dimly, but you're not sure about it. So I respect your learning process, and we'll reinforce it next time.
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, take a little break, and then we'll spend about another 45 minutes starting to learn about the gross margin. Thank you for your application. Okay, take a couple of moments. One, two, three, four, five. Yeah, it's still working. Okay, let's get back into it. I will stop this share and we'll start looking at gross margins. You guys are doing so well in a discipline which is really not easy for you. So
Excuse Roland. Sorry, it's just a matter of concern.
yeah.
Some of us, it is the first time to use Excel, so how if we have a Excel class itself?
By itself.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's really what we're doing. Each time we're having a little chunk for Excel, because you can't, 2 hours of Excel is going to be too much, I think, David.
Okay.
So I'm putting it across in bite-sized pieces. Where easy lo kaka, yeah? Or easier. But I really thank you very much for applying yourselves and for learning this approach, because it is so valuable. And as you'll see, when we get into gross margins, which we are going to start now, that becomes really valuable. But the good news is, David, Api, everyone, the good news is I have prepared a template for you with all the formulas built in. So all you got to do is put the data in and it works it out for you.
Okay, okay.
So that's the good news. You know, you can ask your accountant, your bookkeeper, your Save Mary or Man to prepare templates, and all that you need then is because the formulas are already filled in but not the values. Then all you have to do is put in the values and it calculates everything automatically. So that's effectively what I have done and what we will do. But before we do that, we've got to understand the principle. So we're going to start doing today, and next week we're going to be doing the exercises in gross margins. Okay, let me bring up. So everyone, thank you very much. We're going to look at gross margins and returns to labor in more detail, and I'm going to show you a simple way to do it. So, what is a budget? A budget is simply a way of trying to predict your costs and returns. Whatever you need to do. It could be a personal budget, it could be a business budget, it could be a proposal budget, it could be a project budget, a building budget, anything. You're trying to find out how much it will cost, and if it's an income generating thing, how much will it make? But it doesn't have to be income generating. Many budgets are just for expenditure. What is the budget going to be for our music competition? What is the budget going to be for our, I don't know, for our sports field and so on? Maybe you don't make any money out of it. Maybe you just have to raise the funds. So a budget is a forecast of costs and returns. With a budget, you're comparing the receipts with the expenses or outlays on the activity. We want to know how much kina we can receive for each hectare of land or for each day of labor. And we could probably also say, you know, if we borrowed the money for each kina of capital invested. So we could even add that as well. So our budgets should record, if we're doing it really well, they should record both what we think will be spent and received, and also the actual figures when you end up spending and receiving the money. So then you can compare and you can see how clear or how close were my figures. Were they true and fair, or were they way over or way under. Good budgeting is the key to good farm management. So what we have to do is, instead of just planting away, or instead of just raising whatever it is, ducks, pigs, chickens, we've got to say, okay, how much are we going to plan to do? How much are we going to plan to do? And how much will it cost? How can we record the expenses and then the income? And how can we measure them? How can we control them? So you've got a lot of planning, recording, measuring, and controlling to do as farm managers. Because then the more you do that, the more you'll know what's going on, where you can improve, and the more benefit, the more income you will make. So, what do I use? Returns to land or to labor? So what is in short supply? If you're having to pay, or if land is short, or if you're having to rent the land, then you have to find out how much am I going to make for a land area. So you'd actually have to measure out or pace out your land and find out how much land you have to work with. But if you're investing, you have to work out gross margin as a percentage of your capital. For instance, if you make 12,000 kina and the costs are only 10,000 kina, then your gross margin is going to be, let's go back. Your gross margin is going to be 2,000 kina, or 20%. So your gross margin here will be a percentage of the costs. Gross margin was 2,000 kina, and that's 2,000 as a percentage of the costs. So it's 20%. So will that 20% be enough to pay your bank loan back or your wantok back? So it's always what is in short supply. If the land is short, you work out how much you can make on the land you have. If the capital is short, you have to work out how much you're making on the capital you have, and so on. But if you have land and you're not going to borrow much money from the bank, then your shortage will probably be Walkman. How much time, how much work can your family put into it? So if you're limited to family labor, like many cash crop farmers, you take your profit by divide it by the number of hours you spend working on the crop. So if, let's do an example. If the gross margin, don't forget we've always got to count the gross margin for your peanuts, is 5,000, really good crop. Not dollars, but kinas. And you spent 200 hours working on it, then that means for each hour you made 25 kina, right? or maybe it could be a day. But let's talk about hours because it's more accurate. But the good news is that you can use the same system, the same template, the same Excel worksheet for all of those calculations. You do your gross margin analysis, and that the gross margin applies to everything. The gross margin gets divided by the labor hours to give you your returns to labor. The gross margin gets divided by the capital to give you a percentage, or the gross margin gets divided by the land area to find out how much per land area. So it all comes back to that gross margin or gross profit. So let's work out an example, eh? Okay, first simple example, a personal budget. Make up a budget for yourself, either here at CLTC or as a paid employee. So your income, if you're here, if you're just getting whatever it is, your fortnightly allowance, and against that fortnightly allowance, maybe you're making other money, maybe you're getting money from your One-Tox Direct. Against that income, there will be expenses, food or rent or phone or others. So that's even for yourself, even as a personal budget, as a family or as a single person, you make a budget. How am I going to save? How am I going to have enough money for graduation or enough money for end of year parties or for offerings? Any questions on that? Okay. Anything left over at the end. That's your gross margin, really. So, let's work out a crop budget now. The income, how do we work out the income? We work out how many units, how much land, how many plants, how many animals. And the yield, how much crop will each meter square of land give, or each animal, and then how the price that we get from the crop or the animal. So let's say in the case of bull macaws, let's have a bull macaw example. I can keep 30 bull macaws on the land. Each bull macaw will weigh 250 kilo, and for each kilo of meat, I will get 12 kina. So you can work out how much is being produced, how much the total production will be, and how much income will be made. A bit like the calculations that we saw on Monday with that table. So what you would do there is you would say 30. So the calculation is 30 times 250 times 12 equals, and then you'll work out your total income. So that's going to be 250 times 12, 3,000, 90,000. Sounds like a lot, eh? So there we are. Did everyone see how to work that one out? Just to give you an example. And the same thing would happen if you were planting. How much eggs per chicken? How many chickens? How much eggs can you sell? So you've got chickens times eggs times price of the egg. So you've got quantity, yield, price. Quantity times yield times price to work out your income. If you have 22 rows of peanuts and each row has 50 bunches, then you get 11, how much is that? 1,100 bunches, and each bunch you can sell for 1 kina, so you get 1,100 kina. I'm clear? Okay, good. So, wait, let me just move that around a bit. So that's the income. Now for the expenses, planting material, day-old chickens, 1M something. You'll always need planting material, maybe seed, or maybe you buy seedlings from someone else who just raises seedlings. We've had a lot of people at CLTC, they just raise pak choi seedlings. They buy a little packet of seed and they put the time in over the few weeks and they raise pak choi seedlings and they sell them for a kina or 2 kina, whatever, to each people and make a nice little bit of money from that. So you could do that for other people, or you could buy the seedlings from other people, or planting material that you have to pay for. Maybe some people have an excellent kind of corn or an excellent kind of cacao, and you might even have to pay for the seed or the vines. And then the labor, maybe it's paid, maybe it's family labor, but as we were saying before, that still gets counted. The family labor still gets costed out at a particular price. Usually maybe the $3.50 an hour, which is the standard rural wage. So cost it all at 3 kina 50 an hour. That's fine. He'll need stock feed. Even if you're keeping pigs in a village style, they will grow better if you can feed them extra. Food is the most important thing for livestock. It's more important than houses, it's more important than varieties of the types of bull, cow or pig or whatever. So you'd have to have a good budget for stock feed. For fertilizer, do you need fertilizer? Can you find manure? Chemicals, marketing. All these things have to be counted. So you make sure you don't miss them out or leave them out. And then a total. So you're totaling your income and you're totaling your expenses, and then you find the gross margin, the difference between the income and the expenses. Any questions about that? That's the basic mechanism of budgeting. Now, you don't need a spreadsheet. You can use your calculator or your head and work it all out with a pencil and paper. If you don't have a computer, if you don't even have a smartphone, use your times table, use your maths, work it out. As long as you count everything, you will get a good picture of your gross margin. Any questions? What question? What's the question?
One question.
Yeah.
Maybe we can put that question to the end of the class.
Well, no, bring it up now and I'll tell you if I can answer it now or later.
This is regarding the business, students were given some little funds for, I don't know, maybe business, or is it the farm, or we are confused, so that's why we ask you.
Okay. Have you actually made a business plan? This is for Lidis Business Skills, is it? For the other unit?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, he's designing it the way he wants, really. But what I used to do was, if people had a sound business plan prepared, then we would give them money as a loan. We would lend them some money and they would make money from now till November, like, you know, with a little micro enterprise. So that was how we did it. That's how we used to do it when I was running Business Skills.
Oh, yeah, okay. We are doing, as we are going through budgeting, and then that, it popped up, so we raised it.
Yeah. This will also apply to any business, really. You're using budgeting. But if you want more information, just let me know. I have been in touch with Lidis about this. Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe this is a question that needs to be asked at the end of class.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Anything about this gross margins, particularly about this slide, this page? If you can understand the whole system here, then you're way ahead. You're moving ahead. The trick is counting things properly. Yeah? You don't just guess, you work out yields, you work out price, you work out quantities or areas. And then that's part of the measuring. So you've got to measure, you've got to plan, and you've got to control and record. So it's plan, measure, record, control, really. I'll put it up here. And then once you've recorded everything, it gives you a basis on which you can control your expenses and your inputs. So, any other problems, questions about this? I think you can see it quite clear. Yeah.
This is regarding the first assignment.
Yes, mate.
I ask if you can extend to next week.
Not for everyone. It's just got to be one
Yeah.
one. Because you got here late. I'm happy to give you a week's extension on that.
Yep, I request extension for that. Thank you.
Okay. Send me a note, please, so we have it in writing.
Happy Masol.
Yeah, I already WhatsApp.
Yeah, I know.
WhatsApp, so yeah.
Okay, okay. You already sent a WhatsApp?
Yep.
Fine. Thank you, thank you. I will have a look at it.
Thank you.
Good, good, good. Okay, so, well, this is the crop budget that you've got, and this is in your notes and your
Yes,
presentation.
one more question, Roland.
Yes, mate.
Regarding farm management, livestock class. Last time, we supposed to do practical on poultry, but I'm no work out there.
Yes.
Bawal sa mga
Well, unfortunately, the power supply was the wire was stolen from the power from the that ran from the piggery to the house kakaruk. So Paul is getting another wire, and this time I think we're gonna plan him good in the ground so that it's not so easy to steal it.
So Bamipla ba still working or banogat now?
Check with Paul. He's the boss. Okay?
Okay. Thank
I
you.
know he was planning it. I know he was planning it. He'll be doing his best. He's having to teach you all, and on top of that, run all the farming activities. It's a big load. Thank you. Okay. So, start by this crop budget. This is the exercise for today. You may not finish it today, but we'll get quite a little bit of a ways. Okay, let's say you sell 6,000 cabbages to Tininga, and each cabbage gets you a kina 50. Now the costs: seed, land prep, seedling raising, transplanting, fertilizer, weeding and pesticide, and the cost of the pesticide too, harvesting. First, I'd like you to work it out just on paper and pencil. Make a list make a column on the right with all the headings, income and the costs, and then we'll use Excel next time with a specific spreadsheet which we can use. And I'm copying the spreadsheet. If I haven't done it already, I'm copying the spreadsheet to Cluster. So, please, you can work in pairs if you need, or work 1-1. This is an exercise for us to try to work out a crop budget and to find out what the gross margin is. We'll just have 5 more minutes because we started a bit late, but I don't want to keep you too late. Thank you for your patience and for all turning up tonight. That's really brilliant. That's right. Work with each other. That's fine. If you need to. Mm. Okay, we will go through it again on Monday, but between now and Monday, you can finish the job, work with each other if you need, and let me know if there are any question marks or things that you're not clear about. I'm always here. You don't need to wait till next Monday. Send me a WhatsApp message or a voice call is fine. And this, yeah, thank you. And this will go on the, I'll make a note. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your wonderful concentration. And if some of the Excel details go past you, that's all right. Open a spreadsheet, open the one that I'll be uploading, use it, change the figures, change the setup. You can do what you want with it because it's just like a sandbox where you can play. Let me. Who's down the back? Kip. Yeah. Do you want to come back to your seat so we can close properly. Thank you very much. Good plan, man. Work together on it. That's just fine. And I will be uploading all these examples and exercises for you on the spreadsheet, which will say on the course planning section that says gross margin analysis. Thank you very much, everyone. I will close in prayer and then let you go. God, we just thank you and praise you for being the Lord of all the earth, of all creation. Help us to take care of it well and to manage it well. Help those who are looking to make some income from their land to manage it well. Make us good advisors and good facilitators of that process. I commit each of these students to you, that you will continue to be working with them and leading them in all your wisdom as we learn about farm management. We ask it now in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, thank you, Olgeta. God bless you. And keep the dialogue coming God bless you all. And keep the dialogue coming with all the questions that you need. Have a great night. Good night, Olgeta. Bye.